Okay, I'm here today with author and indie champion Susan Kaye Quinn, who is the author of, if you Google Susan Kaye Quinn and Kindle, she's the author of 3 pages worth of titles on Amazon, including the Mind Jack series, the Debt Collector serial, the middle grade fantasy book Fairy Swap. Her latest releases, the Darien Affairs trilogy, Big Pause for Breath here, and the nonfiction indie author survival guide, where she tells us about how she did it all. So, welcome, Sue.
Well, thank you.
So I'm a huge admirer of your work, both as an artist and as a marketer. For my money, the Indie Author Survival Guide is really the best book out there for indies to read first. I recommend it to anybody who contacts me or I talk to who's just starting out or thinking about it. I tell them read this book first because I think it's got some great information about someone who has made it, but certainly remembers when you were writing your first book and struggling with that and getting it on Amazon and getting your first handful of sales.
Well, thank
Um,
you. Thank you for doing that. I definitely wrote it for people just starting out and to hopefully get them launched. But, I really don't market that book. Unlike other books that I do substantial marketing for
yeah,
sometimes, because I really want it to reach people by exactly that method, the word of mouth, where they can say, you need this. This will help you. And I think it will find the people that can use it, put it to the best use that way.
yeah. I mean that I read it and it may have been the time that I read it. And as we talked before, you have an engineering background. I have an engineering background. I really appreciated the methodical approach of handling the topics and walking through them and putting them in a perspective of someone who's just starting out and not someone who has thousands of sales a month, someone who might not have any sales a month or just might have a handful.
Right.
Um, so on the on the marketing side, to really start off, I was seriously impressed with your launch party for the anthology Synchronic. I'd really like to hear about both the Synchronic experience, how you got selected for that, how that whole process works, and also using Facebook as a marketing platform, which you really seem to do well. So if you could expand on that a little bit.
Sure. I absolutely loved the synchronic experience. I got super lucky. A friend who's a friend now, she wasn't a friend at the time, wasn't able to contribute her story, so she dropped out at the last minute, and they needed somebody to fill a slot. And so I got tapped for that, and it was like, okay, you have 2 weeks to write a story in time travel. And the funniest part was that I had vowed never to write a time travel story because I thought they were just hideously complex and you could never do it justice, and I just wasn't going to go there. And so I had this sort of thing dangled in front of me, and if you know me at all, I'm a huge sucker for any kind of challenge. And, just don't throw the gauntlet down because I'm just going to pick it up. And so, yeah, there was, so I jumped all over that. And working with David Gatewood as the editor was just fantastic. He is really amazing. And the people he pulls into these anthologies that he does, it's great quality talent, wonderful writers. So I was very proud to be, in with that group. So I was very excited, and I ended up kicking out that story and really liking it. So that was a bonus. But one of the ideas that I had, and I actually brought to the group and said, hey, we should do a Facebook party. And most of them were like, what? I've never heard of that before. And I'm like, okay, don't worry about it. It's easy. Well, this is how it works. And, so I walked them through it. And it was fun, and it turned out really well because we had so many people
Yeah.
involved. We had 13 authors. I think we had 10 of the 13 were involved in the party, and we each brought something special to it, and which is part of what's great about anthologies. And it just went really well. I mean, we each took an hour to host, and we did some giveaways, but mostly it was like, hey, just come and hang out with us. And it was the cross-pollination of the different fan bases. Out of that group,
Right,
there
right, right.
were, some high sellers, some who had, this was like literally their very first original fiction story. A couple of them had written fan fiction before. But one of them, Anne Christie, I just adored her story, and it was her very first original fiction story, and it was just phenomenal. So one of my favorite ones in the book. So, it was just, it's the power that you can find with authors working together in terms of marketing. And I continue to have people come in and say, hey, I discovered you through the Synchronic anthology, and now I've gone on to read your stuff and love it and that kind of stuff. So it's a great discovery mechanism. You have to be careful about doing anthologies, that you can get in with people that you can work with.
Right.
And having someone, how you structure it and having a good editor is really key. But it can work really great.
So was David Gatewood the quarterback on that, or was there someone else who had lead on it?
He was definitely the coordinator. I would say that Michael Bunker was probably spearheading the idea of it initially, but definitely David was our editor. I was our collective editor. He did the editing. He did the formatting, the cover, all the stuff that a publisher would normally do. And so it was almost more like having a micro-publisher produce it for us, which is different for indies, but he is such an indie supporter, that it was sort of almost like the ideal environment, because you had a publisher who did a lot of the work and coordination, which would be hard for 13 people to do independently.
Sure, yeah.
And yet at the same time, he has such immense respect for indie authors that, it was like having the perfect publisher do that stuff for you. So it just worked really well. I'm not sure that every anthology would be able to replicate that. Again, you got to have the right people working together and have a good model to make it work. But it can be very successful.
Great. So one of the things that you talk about in your Indie Author Survival Guide is your willingness actually to genre swap, and we had talked a little bit about. I was a big admirer of the Third Daughter, which I think I said in my review. I don't really read a lot of steampunk. I don't read any romance, and I love the story anyway. I think it more focuses about how you write and the story you're telling rather than the specific genre. But can you talk a little bit about genre swapping and why that's a benefit for indies?
I think it can be both a benefit and a challenge, and which is how things usually are. The benefit is, and I explained this to one time to a friend of mine who was looking, she had written a few books in one genre and she was thinking about switching to a different genre. And she was afraid that she would lose all of her readers. And I said, well, you may. In fact, you probably will. So just to get that right out of your head, I said, you're going to have to start over. And she's like, I don't want to start over. And it's like, because it was so hard the first time, right? And I said, well, think of it this way. You are doubling your reach. Now you don't just have fans in one genre. You have fans in multiple genres. Now, it is hard because you're starting over and you have to, develop a whole new fan base, really. But here's the thing. There are some readers who will read all of your works, and those people are wonderful. I want to kiss those people because they like me as an artist, and so they appreciate almost everything that I write. That's fantastic. But those are going to be a small number of your total fan base. The next level up will be the people who will read everything that you write in a certain genre, or given that the story, it may not have to be just one series, but as long as it's still science fiction, they're going to read it. Because that's their genre, and they just aren't into, romance or whatever your other genres that you're writing in. And that's going to be a much larger section of your fan base. And then ultimately, there are going to be some people who will only read one book or one series. So like my Mindjack fans. There's a lot of my Mindjack fans who will not cross over to anything else that I've written. But if I put out another Mindjack short story like I did earlier in the year, they go nuts for it. And so it's like they just love that story and those characters. And that's what it's about for them. It's not about the author. It's not about the genre. It's just that story, for whatever reason, hit their bone that loves it. And so readers are different. And when you go into multiple genres, yes, it's more work, but you're tapping into more different pools like that, with a new series, a new set of characters. And one thing I would tell people to do is not to write in multiple genres until you've gotten a good run with one. I would go and get a series, or multiple standalones, or however you're doing that, but get like 3 or 5 books solid in one series, because you'll just get too frustrated. It's not that you can't expand, but you need to have that reinforcement and that success that comes with multiple books, so you don't give up and quit and think, oh my God, this just isn't working. So you have to take care of yourself a little bit, and having a series will help you get to some success earlier, and then you can branch out. But the other thing is that if you are a very slow writer, you might want to stick with one genre, because you won't be able to put out works fast enough to keep your readers happy if you're working in more than one series or genre at a time. I've got like way too many open series right now. Even for as fast a writer as I am, it's insane. I'm like, what am I doing? And so, I'm about to put out the 3rd in my steampunk series. It's the end of a trilogy, and thank God, because I'm finally closing at least one, what I think of like a silo, to use a Hugh Howey term, right? I've got different silos, and my Darien Affairs silo is kind of closed momentarily. I may write more books, but it's a complete set for the moment. And so I can cycle back to some other series and write more books in those series. So long answer, it's a little bit complicated. I still love the idea of writing in multiple genres, because I get to go where my heart wants to go with stories, but it's not for everyone.
Okay, so a technical question here. So how things are priced in KDP Select and not KDP Select, and now indies have access to pre-orders. What's your current thinking on, tactical thinking now, on how new authors should price series, early works, later works in a series, and how authors in general should be using pre-orders?
Pre-orders are a huge thing for indies, and you have to be a little careful how you use them, but they can be fantastic. I'm so excited, and I don't even know the answer yet, because it's just new, and I'm already experimenting with it. But I think the idea of the big launch might finally be killed by pre-orders.
Right.
Because people can just get the book anytime they want, and eventually it'll show up on their Kindle, and they'll get a little notice. And so the idea now, I think, with this pre-order system is really moving more towards slow, steady sales and capturing all the sales. So, and this, just as an aside, if you're a serial writer, you need to be using pre-orders.
Sure, yeah.
It solves all the problems that serial writers have with capturing their audience. And I'm going to be doing that, and I'm already experimenting with it. So if you're a serial writer, you need to do it. If you're not a serial writer, you may or may not want to use the pre-orders, and I think you need to think about how you want to have a strategy with that and experiment for your own self and see how it works. Some of the early, the costs and benefits are that you won't get as big of a release day bump on Amazon, because all of your bump comes prior to that while people are placing their pre-orders. The question in my mind is if your total sales will be bigger, and also if Amazon will reward you with algorithm love because you have slow, steady sales.
Right.
And there are a lot of indications that Amazon does do exactly that. You can do a BookBub or ad or some other big ad and get a big spike on a single day or even a couple of days. And that looks great for a little while, and it feels good. You're like, yay, I'm in the top 100 of whatever. And, it feels great, but it fades really fast, and Amazon does not necessarily reward you with better placing, also bots, emails, all the other stuff that they do sort of behind the scenes
Right.
to push your book. So I think having a steady position in the rankings where you kind of, so you have a free book, for example, my Open Minds book, it's an algorithm killer. It stays in the top 1,000 of free books constantly. I don't really have to do anything to it to make it do that. And I do every once in a while goose it with an ad or something, but we're talking every few months maybe, or every 6 months I'll get a BookBub ad for it, maybe. But in the meantime, it just chugs along and constantly is feeding, readers to the rest of the books in that series. And because it is so steady, Amazon is constantly doing stuff to promote it. So it's very self-reinforcing. Getting to that point is tough, okay? But depending on the book and the genre and whatnot, there are ways that you can sort of boost your book up and get it to the position where it might be self-sustaining like that. But Amazon likes that. Amazon wants to see steady sales. And so there's no one big ad or pre-order versus non-pre-order. Of course, pre-orders didn't exist then for that book, but there's no one particular thing that I did that helped it get there. And so whether you have a big bump on release day or not, with your pre-order or not, I don't think that's the critical thing. And I think in some ways pre-orders might even help. So that was like a seriously long answer. I'm sorry.
No. And so would you recommend to someone who, so like me, for instance, who is launching the third book in a series, let's say in October, would you recommend that you lower the price of all 3 books in the series to 99 cents at the launch to try to drive interest in the whole series, or create a box set of the 3 and try to drive interest that way? In theory, the total of the box set is going to be less than the 3 books combined.
Right. I don't think those are exclusive. I think you can do all of that. I don't think you have to. Okay. I see a lot of people. I see sort of 2 different approaches. I see people who launch at full price, and I see people who launch at a discount for a limited time and then put the book up to full price. I think both of those are totally legit. Depending on whether it's a first book in a series or a third book in a series, if it's a later book, you may want to go more with the full price launch. If your philosophy is, I want to goose it a little bit and reward my loyal readers, and get it some visibility, a short time, like a 1 or 2 week sale on the new book is great. I don't think there's a right or a wrong to that. I think people are a little bit afraid even of sending out arcs of their second and third books in a series because they think they're only going to get a certain number of sales, like a small certain number of sales. And if they give away free copies or if they put it on sale, they're afraid that they'll lose money because that will sap out the sales that they normally would have gotten. And I think that's thinking too small. You have to think bigger than that because, my God, there is a huge ocean of readers out there. And the question is not, do the few fish that I have in my pond right now are not the full extent of your readers. And you want to treat the fish in your pond really, really well because those are your favorite fish. And you want to give them treats, like free books or, especially if they're going to write a review for you. Oh, my God, that's better than a sale, honestly. So, because the review will be there forever and the sale is only there for a blip. So, if you can give out arcs to your readers and have them, 2 weeks ahead of time of your launch, say, email your list and say, hey, I really want to have 20 reviews on my launch day. That would totally help me get this book some visibility, and it would be awesome. Anyone who's willing to review on Amazon on my launch day, I will send you a copy for free. So just reply now. And you'll find most people won't take you up on that because
Sure.
they don't have time necessarily to read and review. But the people that do are going to be fabulous. And they will help you get off to a good launch. And everybody else will be like, well, I don't have time to read and review, but I really want the book. I'll buy it on launch day for you. So you kind of get them engaged in the process, because these are your fans. These are the people who are excited about your books to begin with. And then they help you boost up into the world and have all the other fish see you that way because they've given you that visibility. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes. Good. Thank you. So can you talk a little bit about your success beyond the printed word? And I'm specifically interested in some of the virtual reality stuff. So talk about how that happens. Do you reach out to them? Do they reach out to you? And sort of what does it mean? Is it like optioning for a film? Is it a project? Is it just talk about the process in general and where you think it might go.
Okay. I am so excited about this virtual reality thing. It is the coolest thing ever. And being such a geek myself, I just geek out about it. Anyway, the idea of the virtual reality, it's somewhat like a film option or a TV option where they've optioned it to hopefully make a production. The kicker is that, first of all, it will be in virtual reality, so the Oculus Rift goggles will be the platform that it's hosted on, and it will be put in a series of episodes because that's the format that works for these goggles. They're basically putting out a short 1 hour or half-hour episode for you to view as entertainment on your goggles. And the way that it's different is that the company that has optioned my books, because I have 2 that are under option right now, they're a startup themselves. So because all of this is so new with virtual reality, what they're doing is they're going out to venture capitalists and trying to get funding to start their company to do this scripted content. And so it's dependent on whether they get funded or not, whether we're going to go to into production. However, once they do get funded, it's guaranteed. It's sort of like, how people will get filmed option. They'll get a certain lump sum of money to hold the property, and then the film may never get made. And there's sort of like a 1 in 100 chance, or even less. For every 100 films that are optioned, only 1 will actually make it to the screen.
Sure.
And that's basically because of funding. They basically need to get, and actors and directors have to be attached and all that. Well, with VR, I actually have much better chance than that, because if the company gets funded, my project is the lead project that they are going to produce.
Wow.
So that part is set. Not only that, they've optioned my other property, and so that would be in the queue for one of the next properties. They've got 5, I think, that are total in their total business plan right now. But it's not just great because there's a better chance of it happening. It's also great because it's innovative storytelling, and I am so very much integrally involved in this. Even though, supposedly my property has just been optioned, in reality I'm kind of a tiny partner in the business, because they have really tapped me as a resource to help them with the storytelling aspects, because we're producing something totally new. And so they've really, I'm overseeing the scripts and giving them feedback, and I went to meet them in Los Angeles last month and got to demo the goggles, and it's just a fantastic partnership.
So is it kind of like a movie? I mean, is it
yeah,
like a 3D movie, but so the next step beyond 3D, or is it more of an interactive type of a futuristic thing?
It's more of an interactive thing, but it's sort of halfway between, like, I think you can imagine virtual reality for games. Right. So you're in a game, you're in virtual reality, you get to run and jump and get the sword or whatever.
Uh-huh.
In our case, it'll be a little more passive than that, in that you're experiencing the story. It would be like going onto the holodeck. and there's a story that is playing out, and you're one of the characters, okay? And so now you get to be Captain Picard on the holodeck doing the story in that environment. And let me tell you, when I went and demoed it, it was amazing. The technology is so ready, and when this hits, like, actually goes live and is available to the public, it's going to be huge. Because when I was in the demo, there was like the first couple of minutes when I was in the demo, it was like, okay, I'm watching the demo, that's pretty cool. And then all of a sudden there was this subtle shift, and I was in that environment. And it was like I could still hear, you have the headphones on too, so you're listening to the sounds and music and stuff. I could hear in the background the guys talking behind me who were setting up the demo and stuff, the immersive guys. But it was almost like that was the dream, and this, what I was in, was the reality. And it was, that's the immersive experience where your brain actually believes you're in it. And oh my gosh, let me tell you, people are going to love that. And it takes this sort of story experience to a whole different level. So it's not like 3D in that sense. When I'm in the 3D movie, I don't really feel like I'm in the movie. I kind of feel like it's a gimmick, you know?
Yeah. You're wearing these silly glasses and yeah.
Right.
So,
Like, oh.
so is there a distribution model that people would own these and download the content, or would it be like an internet cafe or a movie theater where you go and you put the goggles and the headset on?
No, it's definitely in your home.
Okay.
It would be like you getting a Wii box top set. You know, you get a Wii, and then you can stream Netflix movies through that. Instead, you would have the goggles and whatever apparatus goes with that, and then you would download from Amazon or Netflix or whoever the content distributors are. You'd buy an episode, download it, play it, and you're watching it just like you'd watch your movie at home, only you're in VR.
Wow.
So it's
very cool.
The distribution is fantastic. We're finally at this digital distribution mode. It's just like ebooks, where it's totally changed the model of how people consume their entertainment. And they're just, the immersive entertainment guys are very visionary. They are totally here to make this happen and be the first players on the market with scripted content. And there's a part of me that believes it's going to happen. Whether it's this month or next year, eventually it's going to happen, and we're paving the road for how to do that storytelling. So it's very, very cool.
Nice. Okay, last question, because we are running out of time here. So one of the things that really resonated with me about your indie author survival guide was the way that you interwove the three aspects of writing: the craft, the business and marketing aspect, and the creativity. And the creativity piece really resonated with me because I think that's something that, certainly as a newer author myself, I don't really think about that a lot. Because you're so excited to be able to do what you do, you sort of get it for free, I think, early on. But you're very strategic about the creative discussion and about emphasizing that early to sort of maintain your creative edge. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about maintaining your creative edge and maybe some of the creative stages you go through as you start to develop as a writer and grow in your career.
Wow, that's a big topic. You're going to have me talking all day. No, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think it's really important to remember that we are creative people, and to nurture that and grow that. It is literally why you're able to sell books, is because you are a creative person that has done creative work that other people can enjoy. And so being able to maintain your ability to do that and enhance it, it's critical. It's your core business. And so it's a funny core business, because it's not like engineering where you learn a skill and then you exercise the skill and you get better at the skill. Creative work is very different than that. And having come from an engineering background, as you have as well, I think you can probably appreciate the difference of creative work versus technical work. They definitely use different sides of your brain or parts of your personality, perhaps. But the way in which you nurture that, dealing with your fears, overcoming procrastination, your resistance to certain stories, which are probably exactly the stories you need to tell. All of that stuff is, nobody prepares you for that. And then you go and publish and you're overwhelmed and you're excited and there are all these other emotions that are in there and compromising your ability to do your creative work. So, we really are integrated people and we need to manage all those different sides so that we can continue to be productive. And I would like to see my writer friends, not just write one book and quit because they're so overwhelmed by the whole thing. Or get 4 or 5 books in, and if they're not quite selling to expectation or something like that, to want to quit then and say, I tried it and I failed. I'm a failure. I'm an epic fail. We do that to ourselves. And we need to not do that. We need to understand ourselves better and the process better. So the Indie Author Guide is designed for people who are starting out. So they're writing and publishing their first few books. And so I'm hopeful. I talk a lot about tackling fears and getting over that so that you can push through to being a productive writer and actually accomplishing your dreams and your goals. But I think there's another level beyond that. It's great for people starting out. And then beyond that, there's sort of a maintenance level of where you got to keep going. You're in the marathon. And doing stuff for the long haul, there are some different strategies. And I'm going to talk about that actually in my hopefully upcoming book, For Love or Money, if I actually can get it written. I had the cover made. I was telling my cover artist, I'm like, I guess I should write the book now. So I have a lot of great ideas, but I haven't quite managed to get them down on paper yet. I have a few other things going on. But eventually that will come out, and I would say that's a little bit more of an advanced guide for people who've been doing it for a year or more and has several books out or more, and they're looking for ways to build a career out of it, not just get started. So,
sign me up.
I hope so. I hope it will help people. It came out of, I suggested 4 different topics for nonfiction books to my friends, and I said, which one of these would you like? And they all overwhelmingly voted for the one that I was not working on. So I said, well, okay.
Thank you, friends, yes.
You got to listen to your audience, I suppose, and do what they like. So that's my plan.
Great. Okay, this has been a conversation with author and indie champion Susan Kaye Quinn, author of the many titles, the Mind Jack series, the Debt Collector serial, the middle grade fantasy book Fairy Swap, the Darien Affairs trilogy, and of course the Indie Author Survival Guide. Thank you very much, Sue.
Thank you so much for having me.